You're not allowed to laugh. Hello, everybody. Welcome to IT Operations Unplugged, our final live stream of the year. And I'm delighted to be joined by a superb panel today. Emily Tippins, those of you who haven't met. So Avantra's CMO has kindly decided to join the madness that is about to ensue. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the badly lit but ever-present Chris Kernaghan. Welcome, Chris.
I'm not that badly lit, but yes, thank you.
Just look a bit green, that's all.
Better that way.
That's just me.
And on the bottom right-hand corner, we have, of course, got DJ Adams. DJ, thank you so much for joining us once again. Always great to have you on our streams. How's everybody doing?
Doing very
Fantastic.
well.
Very well. It is my last day before Christmas vacation, apparently.
Very nice.
You're just showing off now. So.
I technically am working tomorrow because somebody, not naming any names, Emily, has scheduled some meetings for tomorrow, which means I cannot necessarily...
Good work, Emily.
Yes, the smallest violin, yes.
Playing the world's saddest song just for me. So welcome everybody. I see we have some people on the Q&A on the chat as well. So we've got US West Coast, we've got India, we've got Pennsylvania. Hello, Pennsylvania, and we've got Germany. So hello everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us on this live stream. So today's session, there is one more panelist coming, but he's running a little bit late. That never happens with this particular panelist. But today's session is going to be awesome. We're going to go through a bit of a retrospective of 2020. We're going to talk about some predictions for 2021, and I've asked each of the panelists to prepare what they consider to be a game changer of 2020. Yes, I used the G word. I can see you laughing.
Yeah, you said it before all the panelists came on, though, so we won't...
True, yeah. Exactly. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So 2020. I mean, I want, and I don't want this to become the COVID-19 discussion and how it's changed everything. Let's just agree that it changed everything. But let's talk about the things that the other things that changed. Chris, I'm going to pick on you first. What was your kind of defining thing for 2020?
For me, actually, I got back to what I love. I took a new role in ATOS this year from my previous roles, and I was walking. I do my morning walk, and as I was going through, I was mulling over some stuff about serverless and things like that, and I thought I'm actually back doing the stuff that I really, really enjoy and I'm passionate about, and for me, that was my game changer. I took, in the role that I'm doing now, I'm working in infrastructure as code, and now everybody's frozen, and probably
no, it's just you.
It's
just you.
Yeah.
It's your haircut.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very pensive, though. I like it.
Yeah, chin posing.
Yeah.
To be fair, there are worse ways to be frozen.
You're
back.
I know.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm back. So I infrastructure as code. So I took a product role working on automation and things like that. And for me, it was my first time doing it, the full-time developer role for 15 years. And so my game changer for this year was infrastructure as code and what it's actually brought me back to.
No.
And
Nice.
there he is.
But by the way, we weren't doing game changers yet. We were just doing hey, what was your defining moment?
You just said it again.
But so there we go. Hey, John, how you doing? John can't hear us, so let's continue on. John's having some issues.
Can you
there
hear
we
me?
go. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I can just hear garble. I'll try. I fucking hate Crowdcast. Did I tell you this? It's just a piece of shit.
Language, Timothy.
Can someone tell him we're live? Well, at least it's entertaining for those that are watching. I do like the fact that Mark Finneran has said that it's witness protection program for Chris. So that all works well.
Yeah.
Infrastructure as code. Yes. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love that as well, because I know you've been doing a lot of work with Ansible and Terraform and script-based deployments, which is absolutely one of those hot topics. And John, can you hear us now? You can.
Yeah, it's worked. Yeah, Crowdcast and I don't get on very well.
That's okay. We're gonna have to bleep out that swear you put in the middle of our live stream there earlier. YouTube are definitely going to flag the live stream.
Adult content, yeah.
Yes, exactly. DJ, how about you? What was your defining moment of 2020?
It was a combination of three things, really. One word for each of the three things: asynchronicity, content, and also, the last one is not just one word. And I know that people like us have always known that we've been very lucky to have a job like we have, right? Over the years. However, it was this year that made me realise, actually, I had no idea how lucky I was until this year.
Yeah.
To be able to go out and go to my grandma's, do the shopping, come back, do some work, whatever, completely mesh my work and non-work life.
Yeah.
Although I didn't really see a distinction, but this highlighted it a little bit, but for the better. So, I think we're super lucky to be able to continue doing what we were doing, despite the uplifting actual workload. Great, bring it on. Just go back to asynchronicity though. Everything that has been successful for me this year has involved this whole concept of things don't happen synchronously. Whether that's messaging on Slack or emails or just generally the way because of people doing real life stuff as well. They're more delayed for whatever reason, and that's worked absolutely super well. And the other thing was, in my role as trying to help people understand technology and embrace it and adopt it, content is queen, right?
Yeah.
And at no time more so than this year, because that has been the glue that's kept us all together. We've created more content, we've done online stuff, but the online stuff like the Zoom-based online learning things or whatever, it's the content that's been the keel that's connected us all together.
Yeah.
Well, very well said, DJ. I like the fact that you took a little bit of your first thing. You started with the asynchronicity, but actually you went straight into the human side of it, which is something I think you're absolutely right. There's so many changes we as human beings have had to adopt over the year, and it's more than just, hey, I'm working from home. It's about adapting to a new way of living. At home for all of our jobs. And yes, of course, we all did an element of this, but we all traveled as well. And we're not doing that anymore. And suddenly, living at home for the entire time, working at home the entire time, not being able to leave home in some cases, that's been a massive change as well. And it's shifted the technology industry. It's shifted what people are prioritizing and interested in a way that hasn't been seen probably since, I won't make a grand statement like Industrial Revolution, but you get my point. It's massive. Emily, your turn. What was your one?
Well, I think, just picking up what you were going to say about the sort of working environment. And for me, I think it's been really important to try and sort of take some walking meetings, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we sit all day, very sedentary at our desks, and I have grown to the size of a house because I'm eating too much. So how about taking your meetings outside? And that's exactly.
I have a giant Toblerone on my desk.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah. And so the walking meeting thing is very in at the moment, and it's really good. The only problem I found with it is that you sometimes need a note taker. So our poor team, sometimes we have a scribe and they're trying to walk and scribble at the same time, and then avoiding puddles and whatever else.
Actually, I have to tell a story on this one because part of my team is our support team within Avantra, and we started doing our team meetings. And I said, hey guys, I want to encourage you to go out walking. Everybody should go out walking.
Yeah.
However, there was one scenario where we were all out of the house, all walking, and an urgent ticket came in from one of our customers. And as a result, we've had to slightly tweak it, which is walking meeting, but there's a designated survivor
Oh, I love
left
that.
back at their desk just in case something comes up where somebody needs to actually get on the keyboard, actually do something,
Yeah.
because all of us were out of the house. So now at each meeting, it's okay. We're doing a walking meeting. Okay, who's designated survivor
you
this
can't
week?
come. Yeah.
It's like the lockdown equivalent of the airplane travel, right?
Exactly.
Yes,
Yes, exactly.
yes,
We can't
yes.
all be on the same airplane at the same time. That would be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, Emily, I absolutely love that one. Love it. John, your turn.
I think for me, I think the first thing is I sort of believe in general in a better world. I believe that's a possible outcome, and this year has been awful, right? In many ways, but I think it's also shown us what a template for a better world can actually look like. Mm-hmm. And we mustn't forget as a group, and probably everybody watching this is pretty fortunate, and it may have this whole thing may have impacted you in various personal ways. But, there's 20-30 million Americans at any time out of work. In this country, I know the stats, we just crossed over 300,000 dead. So I don't wish to diminish that. But I think it's also shown us that there can be a better world out there. And I see Henrik, as he and I were talking about the weekend. And one of the things you can do to help with the coronavirus is to live a healthier life. I mean, that's kind of been clear.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and from a work perspective, we've also learned that you don't need to be traveling 24/7 to be effective. I mean, that's still okay. And so, and then you can spend some more time with your families, and you can kind of create this improvement to your personal life. And some of us have been able to do that. But I think I see that coming, where people have learned that you don't need to be in this rat race, and you can take a step back and you can balance that. I know Elena and I have found, I think, a better balance. Not to say that it was bad, but I think it's been better. I've spent more time with my son. We've spent more quality time together than we would have done. And I just sort of think that I believe in a very bright future, and I've told a few people the story of Viktor Frankl, an Austrian Holocaust survivor that wrote a book. I always forget the name because he changed the Man's Search for Meaning, and in that he describes that the first people in the concentration camps that really broke down were those that set a date upon this. We'll have a vaccine by Christmas, or we'll be out of quarantine by March. And I think it's important to understand that I think there is a better world in our future, but we need to be careful not to put a timeline on it.
Yeah.
Because vaccines will be delayed. There will be hiccups along the way. There will be distribution problems. All this will pass in time. But I do believe out the back of that there's room to reflect and not go back to the way we were. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a hopeful for Christmas message, if you ask me.
It is, and I do want to pick up on one thing as well, because I couldn't agree more. From my perspective, being home the entire time, because my daughter was born during lockdown. My son is similar age to your son, John, very, very young. It's been fantastic to be able to spend all of this time at home with them, which otherwise would not have happened. Of course, I'd been here for a period after her birth, but at the same time I would have gone back on the road at some point. It's been amazing to be here and experience that while still being able to do the things that I was doing. And as you say, we've been shown that we can do most of our jobs without having to travel. That's not to say we won't travel again in the future. I think we will, but I think we've shown that we don't need to be on the road anywhere near as much.
It's interesting, actually. One of the things that I remember whenever Anna was born, in 2013-ish, I think. I was actually doing a project from home.
Chris, you seem to be wagging your tail.
I was wondering the same. I was like, is it a dog or do you have a tail?
I have a bear. I have a bear, and
Hold on.
Unfortunately, she's looking fed. But anyway, the you're not getting fed. Go away. I was actually doing a project from home, and what was interesting was there were certain people in the office who thought, who had this presenteeism mindset, and actually thought I was refusing to travel because I had my I just had my daughter, my first, and that wasn't the case at all. So it was just that my project actually was working from home, which was a great benefit. So it was, but I do think that the reduction in presenteeism through this will actually benefit families massively.
Just to be absolutely clear, one of the most upvoted items that we have in our chat so far is that Christmas play the piano at some point in this session. So we'll
I can play chopsticks.
Chopsticks.
That's actually from my daughter. That's actually for Anna. She takes piano lessons.
How can we misspell Christmas? Made you look. Okay, so
listen, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be me.
Fair enough. But let's go back to some of the topics, because we were kind of preparing some stuff ahead of time, and I asked you guys to kind of suggest topics that we could discuss about what happened in 2020. And one of the ones that came up twice was what will be the impact for 2021 to recapture the intimacy we used to get from attending events, and the synergies that would have come out of that, and the natural benefits that came from having those in-person events. Because and DJ, you just had a massive week last week with Tech Ed. I mean, do you want to spend a couple of minutes on that? I think from what I saw from the cheap seats out here, it seemed like a very, very good event, in contrast to some of the ones we saw early on in some of the earlier lockdowns. It seemed like there was a nice balance hit, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
I think I agree. I think it was a great event, and I'm not just saying that because my colleagues were very involved in that. Heroes, all of them, absolutely all of them, behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera. And of course, it had to be a purely online event,
right?
A number of large vendors have done events now in 2021, all online, all a massive amount of work. And it's almost like thinking of what has to happen or what could happen in 2021. We've almost gone, the boat has swung all the way over here to compensate for the lockdown. So how far do we really want to swing it back? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, actually, I really enjoyed that event. I really enjoyed the exhilaration of preparing and attending it. I also enjoyed the not traveling.
Yes.
But of course, what I missed was the hallway track and the meeting people and the people that I only see at TechEd, so therefore once, twice, or thrice a year. So in my mind, this is me speaking personally, I would love to see something like, the keel of the ship being an online event, and then sort of satellite events, just to completely mix metaphors now, satellite events, smaller ones, that allow wider global reach. So at the moment, there's all sorts of different events in my sort of ecosphere. We have the very small sort of Stammtische. We have inside tracks. We have online track, and all these things. So a number of people ranging from 5 to 20 to 50 to maybe 100. And so I think there's a middle ground between all or nothing online or all or nothing purely physical. And that's what I'd like to see in 2021.
Yeah, I concur with that. Emily, what's your thought?
But I think from a purely practical perspective, sorry, I've jumped in.
I was about to say, you don't look like Emily.
They're not going to be. No, I know, but I'm just butting in, and I've started now. So from a purely practical perspective, they're not going to be large-scale online events next year. They're just not.
No,
it's not happening.
Well, nobody in their right mind is going to invest
of
in an event that may not happen. Who's going to do that?
That may or may not happen. It's not. So DJ, to your point, I think these more local events, and Dan Howlett was pointing out on Twitter earlier this week, and he said it nicely. His recollections of this SAP Inside Track that we had in it was in IBM's building on South Bank in London in 2009, and it was probably 100 people, and it was intimate, and you got to see the people, and people traveled into the people that they wanted to spend some time with. And I think that we're going to see a real, the vendors that get that right are going to start to do that sort of thing, where you bring common-minded people together for a singular purpose, and you spend time together and you communicate. And then I think about that same year, I was in TechEd in Vienna, and I remember we were sat at these classrooms with these desks, with these laptops, trying to get this damn MDM system to work on these online things. And of course, the thing didn't work, and it was a complete waste of time. That could have been done much better online. And so I just think we're going to right-size these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, in terms of we ran a summit ourselves a week or so ago. And the thing that we learned was that people do actually respond really well to having a forum and a community space to talk in a non-pressured environment, right? And for us, I think that's something that we want to continue doing. It'll be interesting to see what other people think that are online. But do we start to think about some smaller, like you're saying, DJ, some smaller drop-in sessions that we can provide online to get like-minded people together, rather than just the big bangs that we might do for a wider annual conference or summit. And I think providing as an organization ourselves, we can hopefully provide some of that community engagement that's so important still. If you can't meet people and gather around in a room or in a pub together, well then can we try and recreate something like that online? And
that's a really interesting point, though, because speaking of that summit, I think one of the things that struck me from talking to people afterwards was they what they're looking for in an event like that is not necessarily a perfectly choreographed shiny, obviously the Apples of this world and whatnot will do perfectly choreographed events, but for those community events or where you actually want engagement, authenticity was the word that actually came across, which is people appreciate and a sense of authenticity, not unlike this group here where we're very much just chatting, we're talking off the cuff, it'll go in whatever direction it goes in, and I think people appreciate that as well. And one of the things I think I've seen in 2020 from, because we've all had to do these online, Zoom calls, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, is an acceptance of our humanity and that things go wrong. You know what? Your kid walks in, that's now suddenly far more okay than it was. Your dog wants feeding, you misspell Merry Christmas on the whiteboard. People are okay with these things.
I'll slap you. I'll drive 6 hours and I'll slap you.
But you get my point, though. People are far more accepting and actually want, because they're craving the human interactions anyway, they're actually looking for a degree of authenticity in their online interactions to make up for the fact that they're not necessarily getting them in person.
You do realise that you're saying, online authenticity while being the only person with no authenticity behind you.
I know. I could be anywhere.
You could be. No, but in all honesty, I do see I actually see a desire, a massive upswing in people wanting to do collaborate more and do more get-togethers, whether it be virtual or whatever. But it's and to John and DJ's point, I do see the smaller events actually being much more prevalent in 2021. And that's just the way I see it coming in at the moment. The amount of long distance travel to go to the big tech eds and things like that is going to be vastly curtailed. And I as DJ said, there's people that go to those that I only see when I'm there. Now, one of the flip sides of that is it's actually made it less weird to have beers with those guys. Like, I have some great friends. We all have great friends in the Australian SAP contingent down under. And
Chris, it's not making your shower beers any less weird.
No. You know I don't drink beer. It's shower wine and cheese.
Oh, shower wine, yes.
Or bath, cheese and wine. So, but yeah, it's slightly less weird to invite people for Zoom beers and things like that. So yeah, I know you didn't have to Google that, but yeah, that's that would be my prediction.
Well, just thinking again about maybe bootstrapping what 2021 is going to look like in terms of events and having people do smaller online things. One of the upsides of the lockdown is that more people are going to be amenable to that because they've been forced to get to grips with Zoom or whatever this is, and also environments like Discord and Slack during last week's event. there was a whole contingent that was sort of on Discord, which was our equivalent of the hallways. Okay, it's not the same,
Yeah.
but people are used to that now, whereas before maybe only a small percentage of the people were, were okay with that whole thing and comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat as well, because I think that another important point that certainly we've learned as an organisation is allowing participants to shape the agenda.
Yeah.
So, as an organisation, we have an agenda ourselves, but actually what's more important is understanding what people want to hear and giving them the space to have that opportunity to discuss in a forum that's, authentic, like Brenton said. And we'd love to know what other topics you would like to see on the agenda this coming year.
Yeah.
But tell me this. So this is what I don't get. I don't know about you guys. I'm getting horrible lag on the video here. It's really weird, but whatever.
By the way,
reactions come about 5
it's like
seconds later.
It's like bingo with our live streams, because at some point in every live stream, John has a problem with the video.
Only on this crowdcasting,
which you love.
it's probably because I'm on my old laptop. Anyway, but what I don't get is I could just imagine a vision of an online platform for this that actually functioned really well, where you combine the ability to have keynote style things broadcast with one to few, with collaborative things, and you can move around in a kind of a virtual kind of way, like a Second Life kind of thing, but not. And I just how come that
takes
doesn't
me back.
exist?
Well, I feel like Slack might be the closest
Yeah,
to that. But I take your point. If you actually had Slack channels where you had like a main stage, you can just decide to go there for a specific broadcast, that'd be really cool. I think they're probably the closest that I've seen anyway, but I'm happy to be told that there's something else.
I used Hopin at the Mastering SAP.
Oh, how did that? Yeah, I think that was you've been used for a couple of things. How was it?
From a presentation point of view, it worked really well. From a sort of Q&A and things like that, it also worked pretty well. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Just didn't seem to gel. All the components were there. It just didn't seem to just didn't seem to gel very well. That was not a good phrase. That was not a good phrase.
It really wasn't.
It really wasn't. No. My video froze, and it was one of those ones. I think I'm going to stay stock still, so that if it ever freezes again.
But is this question? Is this our innate inner technical architect in us all trying to sort of come up with a one platform to rule them all? Whereas actually, is that really ever going to happen?
No.
From a just embracing the whole sort of Unix philosophy of small things loosely joined, one thing does this very well, one thing does this well. Should we be not more looking to see how we can sort of loosely couple these things together?
And the ironic thing is that even if someone created that, DJ, the first thing we would be doing is complaining about the fact that it's a one ecosystem where we can't bring in the tools that we want to bring in. Yeah. So no matter what, we're going to end up complaining about whether it's the right thing or not. The consensus in the chat from Marlene seems to be that she liked Hopin, but it was almost too simple. Which I thought
that would be a good way to describe it.
That's a good comment.
Yeah.
It would.
Maybe you need to build one, Chris.
Yeah, right.
But we've gotten on to talking about tools, which I think is really good. And this is the Operations Unplugged podcast, so I'm going to drag us back a little bit and let's talk about operations tools and what's changed this year. This is not the point where I go, and Avantra has. No, that's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm saying, what extra tools have you guys adopted this year that has helped you, ideally slightly linked to how you run your systems or whatever the case may be, but let's Mark says his Zoom is creating a marketplace to add tools, which I think is interesting, which would be quite a nice add-in. But anybody want to go first? Any new tools that really changed the way you were working over the year?
I'll let DJ go first.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'll start with something relatively low level and trivial, but I think it's my my tool, my personal tool of 2020, which is shell check. So the web, everything, DevOps, operations is held together, whether we like it or not, by lots of different
YAML.
scripts. What?
By YAML.
By YAML. I thought you said by camels.
I heard camels as well.
Although there is a link because, of course, the web was held together with Perl before, and the camels.
Yes, it was.
But no, so I'm thinking shell scripts. I'm thinking, again, we're in the cloud, we're doing stuff online. There's a shell everywhere, there's a terminal everywhere. So I'm really into the whole sort of idea of small things doing one thing well, and having sort of this REPL to the operating system, which also you can script it. My scripts have been terrible, but since discovering shell check, which is basically a linter, it's an awesome thing.
Okay.
It will tell you, you better not do that, or you shouldn't do that, or don't do that, or that's going to be an error. And it's got a reference to all sorts of wiki pages with each of the errors described, like proper documentation. My shell scripts have gone absolutely beautifully through the roof.
For those of you playing bingo, the cat has arrived, so you can strike cat off the middle square.
That's right.
So hold on a second. So where would I get shell check? Is it a VS plugin, a VSC plugin? Is it a website? What is it?
So basically, if you Google shell check, you'll come to, I'm not exactly sure, but basically shell check exists as a command line tool, which you can then run and give it a script name, and it'll give you the output. But also you can run it, most linters and linter plugins for VS Code, Eclipse, for Vim will use shell check if it exists in your path. And so it's just super easy to use. There's also a website where you can paste in some code and it'll tell you on the website.
Nice.
So if there's one thing you play with this evening, make it shell check. Seriously.
Can you spell that, DJ, if you don't mind? Because I feel like...
Shell as in S-A-E-L-L, check. Shell check.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. I wasn't sure. It's actually available from Homebrew as well for those of you living in the Mac OS X sphere and running... Because that was one of my big ones this year. I think I finally got my Mac working the way I wanted it because I actually installed all the extra programs that I run using Homebrew, so they're easier to upgrade. So shell check is available from Homebrew as well, which I think is quite nice.
And just to give people a heads up, when I first started running, loading my scripts into the editor with shell check turned on, there was all this stuff down my left-hand gutter with like pointers. I'm thinking there's something wrong with shell check, or there's something wrong with this because it's highlighting every single line as problematic. But basically, it was right. I've written rubbish code, and so it was just.
Maybe I don't want to install this.
Do you know what this reminds me of? Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminded me of the day when I realised that my dad actually did make mistakes. And I was quite old when I realised this. I was probably in my 30s. My dad. I was saying, well, my dad's super organised. He doesn't make mistakes. I've now had another pillar whipped out from under me by DJ saying, he writes crap code, because that in my head just doesn't work. That doesn't. Who are you?
I've managed to fool you all these years,
crashing down.
You have. Absolutely. There is actually a VSC plugin for it, by the way, extension.
Yep.
If you want to use a programming crutch like an IDE, then that's fine. But,
and just like that,
I am wounded to the quick.
Low blow.
I'm going to switch tack, and so we've gone from deeply technical to let's go to you, Emily.
Well,
let's
Brenton,
go for Go on.
You've disappeared.
Yeah, you don't get a say anymore.
We got to wait 6 seconds for him to hear us say, or for him to notice that we're waiting for him to speak. Can you hear us, John?
No, he can't. He's just weird.
Yeah, I can hear. I thought you went to Emily though.
I tried to.
This delay is annoying, but my take on tools is actually the opposite. I was just looking as you asked to see if I could find, and I haven't really used any new tools this year. Not really. I mean, there's a couple of little things. What I have done, especially from our business perspective, is consolidated, because it's so easy to have many of things, and so I've really tried to drive people. We had Dropbox and Office 365 and Google. I mean, So we moved just to Google. I mean, it's arbitrary, but we had Asana and 5 other apps, and we just use Asana now.
Yeah.
And so I've really tried to simplify that, and I think in these remote times, that's really helpful to people because they've got one place that they go to, and we've made sure that it's all cloud and that it all goes down when Google goes down.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was an interesting 45 minutes last week. It's a good thing we didn't get. One of our panelists was potentially going to be from Google. We could definitely take the piss out of him for that one. But speaking of clouds going down, my God, my home became so dumb when AWS had their outage on US East 1. Because I was talking to John about this earlier. Actually, it was pure stupidity on my part. When you're sleep training a child, you do anything to try and build routine, build consistency in their experience when they're going to bed. And I did this using Alexa, which seemed like a great idea until Alexa no longer works. And then you have a child who's going, I don't go to bed because we're not doing the normal thing we do, because Alexa's sitting there going, I'm sorry, I can't take your request right now. So but it was interesting. It was amazing how quickly my house became very dumb, even from switching on lights, from managing bedtime.
You should see how smart it gets when you leave the house.
I'll give you that one.
Kind of walked into that one.
I did.
Skip merrily.
So let's redirect it back to Emily. Your turn. So we've had shell check. We've had consolidation of tools. So consolidation.
I've got 2 really, I think, for me. So in terms of, working from home and when you need a bit of quiet space to deep think or whatever, I've discovered Highland app, which is sort of like a white space writing space, if you like. And it's, no distractions. Obviously Google Docs are great and they're fine. You can collaborate on them. But if you just literally want to, it's the equivalent really of when we all used to work in an office and you take yourself off to a quiet room.
Yes.
You're like, I just need to think.
With a pen and paper.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed using that. And then the other one is Chromecast on my phone to control my TV. It's such a game changer. I'm sure I'm just a complete laggard when it comes to this, but I was like, this has changed my life. I can just play Spotify from my phone on my TV.
It was there, and suddenly it's there. How did that happen?
Yeah, this is small things.
No, but isn't it the small things that prove the most positively disruptful things in our lives? Yes. Chris, your turn.
God, it's just
you in my mind are the king of tools because
I am. I think okay. So I can
the most
actually
complicated way possible.
Exactly.
But this is why I have you.
What, to take the piss out of you for doing it in the first place? Okay, fine.
Chris, have you identified a tool to manage your tools? How about that?
Very meta.
Very meta.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I'm really not going down that rabbit hole. I think for me, actually, the two would be Visual Studio and I found a really good DJ. Close your ears because you're not going to want to hear this. Git client. When I'm working with my team, obviously I'm coming. Yeah, I know. Because they're all old school basis folks and things like that, they really
love command line and therefore use command line on the Git Git on the command line constantly.
They actually find Git really quite intimidating. So by giving them a visual representation of the repo and its commit status and branches and everything has actually really helped and made it easier for them to identify and see their position within the branches and code and commits, and makes it more real for them and less arbitrary. So that for me has actually been a fantastic tool because it's really helped bring the development.
You haven't told us what it is though.
It's Gmaster.
Gmaster, okay.
Are you the Gmaster?
I am, yes. Well, actually, I actually use Git Kraken, but because we use Enterprise GitLab, the Gmaster is actually free to use on Enterprise.
You're talking in very grand things. You know, you're the king of tools, working with the G Master. Yes, this is the way it works.
So I've got a question for you, Chris. Actually,
Yes.
in your travels this year in code and everything and configuration, I've noticed that declarative is a thing for you now. Not just for
Declarative
you,
versus
but I mean,
imperative.
with configuration and infrastructure as code and
Yep.
you know, software eating the world and everything, especially in the area of DevOps and so on. What are your thoughts on you know, the declarative nature of defining infrastructure in YAML, for example?
I like it. No, okay. So when you look at imperative languages versus declarative languages, so when you're using something like Python, for example, to define your software objects, where it becomes where the imperative languages have an edge over declarative languages is when you require much more flexible infrastructure in terms of logical paths, if then that. Okay. Declarative languages, although they have logical operators, are not particularly good at that. So when you're doing evaluation-based conditionals, that's where you would use an imperative language. If you're just doing conditionals based on facts, then you would use a declarative language. Okay, if that makes sense. So if you are saying, if I'm using rel, then do this. If I'm using SUSE, then do that. Okay. If you're asking a more complex or evaluative statement, if it's rel on the 15th of June, then do this. That's that's where you would probably switch to an imperative language rather than a declarative language. Okay.
Go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to say, and Chris, do you find that is it even more important then to have a gold standard in place so people know, what that kind of standardization approach is, and when you have other global multiple teams all inputting into that, then you don't get some of these anomalies that might really cause problems in a kind of declarative environment.
So yes, having the happy path is having your default happy path, and then you can then use the conditionals to then define the scenic route around things. But the way I've taken to building the components that I've been working on is, as DJ said, each declaration has a defined function that is small and as reusable as possible, and then you start to build these up,
the library of them.
And that is the right way to do it. So when I'm looking at Ansible, for example, they have task rules and playbooks, and they now have collections, and collections are basically a whole load of tasks and rules collected together that you can import as a group and then mix and match and take what you want. Okay. So nice. Yes.
So I'm going to switch track here slightly back to what we were talking about, because there was one topic that didn't come up that I was hoping to use as a segue, which I'm surprised it didn't come up. Now we're going to discuss the fact that it didn't come up, which is in none of the tools you guys talked through was there a focus on automation, which I kind of expected there would be to a certain extent. Automating life, automating processes. So none of the tools were specifically linked to automation. Maybe I expected incorrectly, but it just surprised me.
That was just too easy. That was just too easy. Because when you look at it, although my role, I've spent the last 12 months actually automating stuff, the tools that I'm using are an end to themselves. The thing that enabled me and helped my progression massively in the progression of the team is Visual Studio Code and GMaster. Well done, John. So that for me was actually, I spend about 60% of my day in VSC. So yes, it's Ansible or it's Terraform, but ultimately the tool that changed had the biggest impact on my life was VSC, or this year was VSC.
Interesting.
One thing 2020's taught me is that you can't automate a cat anyway.
No, you can't. You can't. Definitely not.
But actually, to your point,
This
I guess,
animal, right? It never comes to see me. Like this is it knows when I'm on.
It knows you're on camera.
This webinar.
You know why it
It's
is?
the
Because
only time.
the last time we
Knows
were on
you're on
Crowdcast, you said that Crowdcast causes your fans to go on, so the laptop gets really hot. That's why it's coming over, because it's like, ooh, nice and warm, toasty over here.
See, that's another thing that is, I didn't know.
And the
this
lights are on.
either. But yeah, the people have been talking about, oh yeah, my cat's sitting on my keyboard again because it's warm and cozy, and that's another thing where, again, going back to the whole human aspect.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a cat. It's a problem. Okay, fine, that's cool. But just
very
to
glad
the
my
automation
dog can't
thing.
get on my keyboard.
I think it's just because cats are a-holes, but whatever.
Why
Say what
stop
you think
swearing
there,
now, John?
Don't worry. Say how you feel, John. Don't worry.
Say how you feel.
I didn't swear.
That's my point. You did it earlier. You may as well keep going.
All I can say is I'm just glad that my dog
I
can't
thought-
get on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Break it. So
Need a mechanical one.
Although we have all
I have
seen
a
your
mechanical
tweets.
one.
But DJ, you were trying to make a point there. I want to make sure that we get that.
Oh yeah, so I think for me at least, automation is almost a given. So for example, thinking about again, going back to the shell check example, I'm writing stuff left, right, and center because I'm automating things.
Yes.
In the run up to the event last week, I was tweeting, till the cows came home, but it wasn't me. It was
Yes.
a shell script.
Same. Yep.
It was running in a GitHub action on a container that was completely automated. And that action was defined, and that whole process was defined declaratively in YAML. Let's go back to Chris's point. And so,
YAML with
it's all
camel.
part of the same sort of, mixing bowl that we're working towards here.
Yep.
Very
good point. So what's going to be
Yeah,
changing?
I think DJ that sort of nails it. And if you in my world, we did a lot of automation in 2017, 18, and 19, and sort of as we consolidated things a little bit, we added some automation this year. So we put automation into our alarm system, so that's now integrated into everything. But that just feels kind of incremental and reusing what we had already, rather than and doing more automation. Brenton's done a lot of work with automating HubSpot to reduce the number of additional tools that we have around it, for example. But again, it just sort of feels like a given.
It definitely feels like if we're going to solve problems like that one, I mean, that's an easy example, the HubSpot stuff I'm doing. I feel like the repeating tasks are becoming more annoying. And because we're sitting at home, sitting on the couch in the evening, tinkering around with, hey, you know what, I might be able to automate this. It's kind of just standard now. And trying to take that automation first approach is very much what I'm trying to do. And it's something I've very much taken on board for 2020 to really reduce the mundane tasks that John makes me do. Pretty much, that's it.
I've got to jump in a second, but I'll leave with one thought, just completely related to that, Brenton, which is that for me, for 2021, one of the things I want to do is use this sort of interstitial time and the time I've got for, going out for walks, for example, like Emily was talking about before, to think about and learn about. I'm using tools, and I've been using them for years, but I haven't never dug in properly to understand the other 80% of what they can do, right?
Right.
And so what I want to do in 2021 is pick those, that narrow set of tools, again, to John's point about, not more tools, but just not wider, but I want to go deeper.
Yes.
So that's what...
Get value out of where you're already invested. I think that's key, absolutely key. And I think that you segued us quite nicely to where I wanted to go anyway. And I know you have to go in a minute, DJ, so feel free to just tell us when you need to go. But you have to go now. DJ, thanks so much for being on. It was great to see you.
And
Thank you for having me. I'm very honoured.
Always, anytime.
Okay.
We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
I can kick you out. There we go. So I think that's a great one for 2021. Emily, have you similar aspirations for 2021? What's top of your mind?
That's a really good one. And I think I've probably answered my own question by saying about the virtual events too early, because I think that's going to be key for us to keep a community going, of customers, of people in the SAP community that we want to embrace and and broaden out to ITOM, etc. And I think that these virtual events can potentially provide some of that, but they've got to be other options as well. I think for me, exploring what those other options are is critical.
Yeah, John.
It's tricky, and I'm also gonna head in a minute, because we are, as other folks in Philadelphia will know, we are headed right into the midst of a large winter storm called a nor'easter, which is a peculiar type of winter hurricane that comes sort of creates in the mid-Atlantic and comes its way up, and swings inland at some point, and it looks like it's gonna give us a direct hit and give us a couple of feet of snow, which is pretty cool. But I still have a little bit of prep work to do for it. So I'm nearly there. Bring some firewood inside and stuff like that. But
the usual. Marlene said it's just started at her house.
Yeah, I can see it's just starting to snow, but it's not so heavy that I can't finish up what I need to do. It's all good. But I think the sort of question is I think we need to continue to find our identity. As I think there's a reasonable expectation that next year will be a bit of a repeat of this year. I think some people have got this imagination. It's all going to be margarita and beaches by March. I suspect that
virtual
won't be the case.
Beaches.
So I think we've got to, maybe. Yeah. But I think we have to find the beat of our drum in our virtual beach, if you like, and make that work for us. And virtual events or whatever else it looks like, I don't know, but I think that needs to become the future. And I think we need to understand how we knit this sort of thing that we've got going on here, which I think is great, in with how we interact in person. This group hasn't met in person since when? Probably
September last year, maybe.
Was it? No, well, you guys, I don't think the three of us have been in a place since Sapphire.
It actually would have been Sapphire a couple of years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
It was actually
it was a few years ago
before I left.
But I think we need to figure out how that sort of integrates and actually make it work, because I think we've tried different things as a global economy, and I don't think we've figured out all of that. And it's the same at home, right? So who do you interact with? I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty much the same people over and over. But we've got to kind of start to explore and make that work in context, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you have the final word, Chris. So I'm going to jump in, because I think mine's a little bit similar to yours as well, John, but slightly focused on the educational side of things for both me personally. What am I going to upskill on in 2021? But actually for our customers as well. So one of the things is, how do we marry what you just described, which is figuring out the right paradigm to engage with people, with the content people want to see to help them achieve better things with, in our case, in my case, our software. So that's going to be very much something I'm going to be focused on in 2021. And talking to people like Mark Finner, and he has some fantastic ideas. And I know you and I, Emily, have been working really closely with him on that. I think we will crack it. It'll take some trial and error, but it will be something similar to this, because this is where I think I've seen from people we get the best responses. Again, going back to that word I keep saying of authenticity, and kind of on-demand stuff that people really like, or seem to like in this world. But Chris, just before we close it out, 2 minutes from you. What's your 2021 predictions?
I think the basis folks, the plumbers in the SAP ecosystem are going to get an awful lot of new tools. And they're not going to know how to use them, frankly. Which means that there's going to be a lot of very unhappy customers. When you look at some of the announcements at TechEd and things like that, the we have HANA Cloud, we have Steampunk, we've got a whole load of stuff, and the whole breadth of technology, it just doesn't seem to stop it. The scale, the width at which basis folks are having to deal with is increasing, and the bit that I see is that they're not able to work in that code declarative environment. And one of the things I'm actually going to spend time doing within the community is actually trying to sort of bring people on that journey to understand what is infrastructure as code, and I've frozen again, and I'm wave around and go and caught up, and so to catch up and actually get at least some of the tools or know what it is they're supposed to be looking for in that paradigm to try and bring them along, and that for me is going to be key. The other thing is that I really see the idea of AI ops hitting that peak just before it goes into that pit of despair. All the people who have been selling or overselling capability will be found out pretty quickly.
Yep.
And that's going to turn a lot of customers off. But at the same time, those companies that actually have it are going to benefit massively from their ability actually to execute.
Yeah.
I heard somebody the other day actually say, "Oh yeah, we've got AI ops. We can deploy an elk stack on your machine." I was like, I'm not entirely sure that's really what it means. And then I compare that with the stuff you folks are doing. I think, that's where it's at. So yeah, I can see it. It's just going to peak, and then over 2021, people are going to get found out, and it's going to be painful for some folks.
Well, actually, I'm going to pin you down on that one, Chris, because I think what might be nice if maybe in the new year we maybe schedule one of these, not necessarily as one of these, but a separate one specifically on infrastructure as code. And maybe we'll get a few folks on and we'll do it in a collaborative way and people can follow along and ask questions.
Funny,
it'd be a lot of fun.
I have a test one planned for Monday coming.
Nice.
Just as a thing, but it'll be very rough and ragged. So I know you guys are very good at this stuff. So if there's a reasonable amount of engagement, then maybe step it up and put a bit more prep behind it.
Sounds like a plan.
You can do it in an immutable way, can't you?
Yeah. A declarative way.
Yeah, in a declarative way.
This is a test.
And on that note, I think it's time we start to finish up. So I want to thank DJ, obviously who has had to head off, but Chris Kernaghan, thank you so much for being here as always. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me at BooBoo and Instagram at BooBoo2 and various places. Because
BooBoo1 was taken. Emily?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, the usuals.
Excellent. And you know where you find myself and John because you like to avoid us. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody for taking the time to collaborate.
My local bar, otherwise known as my basement.
I was about to say. Yeah. And thanks to everybody for the engagement in the chat. It's been superb. And see you next time. Happy holidays, and see you in 2021.
Well, thanks, folks. Cheers.
Bye.